And welcome back to a fresh episode of the Business Growth Show. I'm excited to be joined by Alex Moscow today. Alex has been helping to position his clients at the very head of their industries for well over a decade. Today, he uses his skills to help the owners of established B2B businesses to achieve their vision by creating content-driven campaigns that influence and attract perfect prospects. He's helped build pipelines worth hundreds of thousands of pounds. Alex, a very warm welcome, sir. How are you doing?
I'm very well, Sam. Thanks for having me on.
No problem, man. So looking forward to this one. We're going to be talking all about how we can position ourselves as the market's go-to expert in our particular market, in our particular industry, which is something that's being talked about a lot, especially when I'm scrolling through my LinkedIn feed, when I'm scrolling through social, I see all these different posts about being a thought leader, why you need to really know your stuff, why you need to be an expert, and all that good stuff. So it's going to be an exciting chat. I think there's going to be a lot that we can bounce off each other and talk through, and hopefully give a lot of tips to everyone tuning in today. So I want to jump right in and start with quite a controversial question for you, Alex. Is being an expert actually something that our customers or our prospective customers really value and really need us to be in today's world?
So yeah, great question to kick off with. And I think this is the important thing. With anything in life, it doesn't mean anything to anybody unless it has a value, right? So expert is not something that you can necessarily give yourself. You can't, I mean, you can call yourself an expert, but it's not something that you can necessarily own unless it's been given to you, right? So it's up to somebody else to decide whether you're the expert. And a lot of the time that feeling for them has to do with how much value you offer them in terms of that expertise. So in terms of, I've got problem A, I need to find a solution to it. If you give me advice that has value and helps me get over that problem, then I'm going to say to myself, yes, you are an expert. So I would say that it's absolutely the right thing for people to aspire to, but it's not something you can kind of say I am. It's something you've got to earn, and the way that you do that, well, I mean, that's something that we'll talk about in more detail, but there's a number of different ways that you can achieve that status with a given audience.
Got it. Understood. No, I think that's a fair summary. So it's something that has to be given to us rather than proclaiming ourselves as experts. Perhaps we've just got a new role that's a new field, or we've just started a new business. So rather than saying from day one that we are the expert in our industry, it's something we need to earn, something we need to actually build up to get to that position.
Yeah,
makes sense.
It is earned for sure.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, let's dive into some ways that we can actually to make that happen. So I mean, in terms of, perhaps we could outline it from scratch and work from the very ground up. So what are some ways that we can, if we're perhaps new to our industry, or if we're perhaps not necessarily looked at it too much detail before, what are some actual tips we can actually use to become an expert in our specific industry or sector?
Okay, so let's start from the very beginning, okay? It probably helps if I give you a little bit of background on my work and how I've got to do what I do today. So I've been in public relations for 20 years almost, mainly B2B, a lot of technology, but also a lot of professional services, a lot of consultancy kind of driven companies. And I was always the chap, and still am, the guy who was partnered up with the business owner, the senior teams of those client companies. And my job was to raise the profile in the media of the senior people working in those companies. And the way that the process that I devised in order to do that was, first of all, to understand the audience, okay? Because any person has a lot of, especially if you've been doing what you've been doing for a long time, you've got a lot of insights and knowledge up here. And what a good PR person does is they help you to audit that knowledge, right? So, and in order to audit it, you've got to first understand the audience that you want to influence and the people that you want to attract. Because when you understand them and who they are and how they're motivated and what they need, then you are able to look at what you know and draw down the things that you can offer that will have value to them. And typically what's happening is that there's something that they want, right? So there's an objective, there's a goal that they seek. And in order to get there, they're coming up against obstacles, obstructions, challenges that they can't get over themselves. And that the reasons for that are many. So, depending on your industry, depending on the people, the obstacles that they face will be very much specific to that niche, if you like. So it's very important to be very specific around the people that you are looking to attract. So does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah. So understand your audience, understand who your actual target customer is, and then did you say the obstacles or the objections that they're likely to face?
So the obstacles and the challenges, right? So what's happening is that they're coming up against these challenges. If they could overcome them themselves, they would, right? But they can't. So they need to go out there and they need to find somebody who can help them. And what they're looking for is somebody they feel has been through what they've been through before. So either what they'll do is they'll go to somebody they trust. So they'll go to people who have given them good advice before, and they'll ask them for help. And what those people either say, yeah, I can help you with that. I've had this situation before, or I've helped somebody else deal with this situation, and this is what we did, and this is how we achieved, and this is the impact that we had. And they'll be that, that'd be great. But then, if they go to those people and say, well, actually, I can't help you with that, but I know a chap who can, or I know somebody who can, right? So they'll either ask for a referral and they'll look and they get introduced to somebody who can potentially help them overcome those challenges. Or if they can't find somebody to be introduced to, that's when they go looking, right? And they'll go onto LinkedIn or they go onto Google. And that's where the idea of content, right? So and thought leadership, and I don't love the idea of thought leadership, because actually you're not trying to achieve thought leadership, because that doesn't do anything for anybody. What you're trying to do is be valuable, to be of value. And the way that you do that, as I say, is to understand the market, what they want, and then provide valuable insights that when people stumble across them, they go, wow, yeah, that's right. I get that. That's almost like the first step of my problem. And you've just defined it really well. You've described it in a way that I could never have done. So what you've done actually is you've helped me to understand my problem just by describing it in a very clear and compelling way. And then you've given me a little hint of insight that helps me get edge a little bit further forward. So start gaining momentum to past the obstacle and towards the goal. And that's when somebody will say, they feel like an expert. And that's when they'll get in touch, or they'll interact with a bit more of your content, and then they'll come to you. So that's what I mean.
Got it. No, that's awesome. So firstly, understanding our market, understanding the common problems or challenges or frustrations that they have. Have you got any tangible ways, Alex, that we can tap into those? So if we need to perhaps put together a list of our most common problems, common objectives that our customers typically have, a way that we can do that before we go into step 2, which will be then creating the content around that.
So great question, and absolutely the right question. How do you start? Where do you go? Well, here's the thing, and it's bewildering to me that people don't do this, but they don't. The easiest and the fastest and the most effective way to start understand your audience and what they need and what that's of value is to look at your clients, right? The first thing that I would suggest is identify your favorite clients, right? So your favorite clients are those people that you enjoy working with, that you do great work for, that you get great results for, where there's mutual respect, where they give you a problem to solve that you love solving, where they pay you what you're worth to solve those problems, right? So that's the first thing. Identify the clients that you feel make comprise that for you are your perfect clients, they're your favorite clients. And then you go into those clients, crazy, I know, but loads of people don't do this, and you speak to them, right? But you ask them searching questions, not about you, certainly not at first, but about them. And the kind of questions that I'd be asking my clients is, what was it that motivated you to search for my services? Not my specific, not me specifically, but if you do web design, if I'm right? So there's hundreds of potential options for anybody looking for a web designer, but
Sure.
they're going to have a very specific reason that triggered that compelling event that triggered their search for an expert in your field, right? So you need to understand what that thing is, because that typically speaks to motivation. It speaks to the thing that they wanted to achieve and the problems that they were trying to solve themselves, right? And therefore what triggered their search for those services. So that's really important, because when although we are unique individuals, our problems aren't unique. If somebody's had them, chances are 100 other people have had exactly the same problem, right? So you're starting to understand the kind of problem that you solve, and you solve well for this perfect prospect, because they're a perfect client, right? So that's the starting point. And then you start searching into, once you understand that, you understand why it was difficult, what they were struggling with, you then want to understand the process they went through to buy from you, right?
Okay.
Because when you understand their buying process, then you can build a journey that kind of runs alongside that process. So anybody who's going through the same process, and a lot of people do go through the same process, you can make sure that they find you as part of that process. But it's important to understand how they're buying and where they're looking to buy, so that you can make sure you show up in those places. But then this is a critical bit. You want to find out who else they looked at, as in addition to yourself, but also why they disqualified those people, right? Because that's important, because if you understand the objections they have to your competition, you can use that to your advantage. But also why they chose you, because when you understand why they chose you, then you can really bring that to the fore in your marketing. You can, that becomes your strengths. It becomes your secret sauce. And then as you move forward, you find out what it is that you did that really helped. You don't really want to know. It's not important about how you do what you do. It's more important about what they felt was valuable. And then you look at the impact that you had. And that's the real juice there. That's the juice, because that's the impact, and that's unique to you. Only you can achieve that, because you've done it. And if anybody else wants that, then who else are they going to go to but you to get it?
Yeah, there's some real gold in there, Alex, and that's something I've been banging the drum, tooting the horn about for the last few weeks. So really good stuff. So essentially understanding who our very best clients are, so the type of work we actually want more of, not the clients that perhaps frustrating us or not giving the revenue we need or supplying the type of work we want to be doing more of, but the actual pinnacle, the top tier clients we want to be working with to grow our business. And then
Yes.
It sounds like interviewing them or setting up a call with them. Is that what it looks like? Or organizing a time to sit down with them and have these kind of chats?
Absolutely. 100%. There is no better new business tool, if you like, or approach than going in and actually sitting down with and speaking to your clients and finding out. Now, that's where the problem also lies, not in that the actual interview, but people's mindset around talking to their clients.
Right.
I've interviewed hundreds of my clients. And there's two things that I found. One is that people are happy to talk to you. And if you do a good job for them, and you clearly have, right? Otherwise you wouldn't be talking to them or looking at them as potential kind of interview.
Sure.
Then they will tell you stuff that I promise you have never heard before and don't realize. And the stuff that you can get is so wonderfully valuable. But people are nervous. I think they're nervous about first of all, I think they're nervous about, they think they're going to annoy their client. They think they're going to put the client out, and the client's going to be like miffed that they've asked for half an hour, 45 minutes of their time. That never ever happens. Second thing, they're worried about what they might hear. Now, I would suggest that on the whole, you're going to hear a lot of positive stuff. But if some negative stuff comes out as well, that's not a problem. That's a good thing, because then you can deal with it, because these are good clients. These are people that like you. So if there's some negative stuff there, well, then by clearing that stuff up, they're just going to like you more. So, I have never been in a situation where it's been a difficult conversation or they felt put out by it. And if anything, you get all this great insight, plus you can ask for a referral at the end of it. because you can say to them, it sounds like we did a good job for you. And they say, yes, you did a wonderful job for us. Well, that's fantastic. And it sounds like that was the problem you had, and that's what we helped you solve. Oh, yeah, that's exactly it. Well, who else do you know that's got that same problem? And then they, spill the beans on it. So, it's a really powerful exercise for a lot of reasons. And so if you are concerned about doing it, I would say don't be concerned. But if you really don't want to do it, then get somebody else to do it for you.
Sounds like a win-win from what you've said there. Because like you say, if it's clients you have done a good job for and you're happy, then even if they do give you some negative or constructive feedback, at least you can actually tackle the issue there and then and make sure something's done about it, rather than, as many of us have done in the past, just leave it till the last minute. And that's when they might be looking at another vendor, and it's
already
too late.
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you one more thing, right? That is incredible that I found with these interviews. And this is something that nobody sees coming. And that is because you've talked through the project from inception to conclusion. So from, if you like, pain to pleasure, and you've helped them come to an awareness of the journey they've been on and what they've learnt on that journey, then typically they get something out of it, and something really positive, because they get insights into their business that they might not have considered. And it's amazing how often I'll have finished an interview with a client and they will thank me for the interview because of what they've got out of it.
Awesome. And I guess you could go one step further, Alex, and record it if they're open to it, and then use that video or audio footage as part of your testimonials on your website, your case studies, and all sorts, which I'm sure we can dive into in a sec.
100%.
Awesome. So we've interviewed our ideal clients. We've understood what motivated them to reach out to us specifically in the start, the problems they struggled with, what their buying process was, why they eliminated other competitors, and why they specifically chose to work and do business with us. And then perhaps chatting a bit more about how they found it, any issues along the way, and so on and so forth, maybe get a few referrals out of it. We've done that. How can we now use these insights that we've gained to attract more new clients that are just as good as those?
Okay, so great question, and this bit's tougher to do, but is 100% worthwhile, and you should do. If you need to get some help with it, then I highly recommend you doing so, because this is the absolute key. Now let's start with a couple of crazy stats, right? Let's start with this one, and I'm trying to remember exactly. It's like 98% of content is ignored. Right, that means that the vast majority of people out there creating content, whether it's B2C, B2B, are essentially wasting their time, because most of it doesn't get engaged with. Nobody really sees it. So it is, I'm always going to be an advocate of content, because it's my stock in trade. It's what I do. But you have to be very careful, and you have to be very strategic and very intelligent in the way that you create that content, because if you don't find the right things to talk about, you are going to waste your time, because people just don't have time to interact with this stuff or engage with stuff that's of no use to them. And the thing is that, I've been working in this industry since the millennium. And that was pretty much, when the internet really started to come into its own, and we had the internet boom and bust. But the point is that the internet's been around for a while now, and we have got, we're bombarded on a daily basis by different people trying to grab our attention. And what we've become very good at over that time is creating a defense mechanism. And that defense mechanism is so well honed that in a microsecond, somebody can work out whether that piece of content is useful to them or not. And so, you don't have any leeway here. If your content's bad, it will get ignored. If it's good, somebody will engage with it. So, but you've got a microsecond almost to help them make their mind up. And that's typically to do with the headline. And if the headline's good, that will engage them. But then if it can't, so I'm sure you know clickbait, right? So if it's clickbaity, headline grabs, but then the rest of it's tosh, then you're going to lose them, and that's really bad for you, because then you know you've lost them forever. So it's it's about grabbing them with the headline, and then the content needs to follow through and actually deliver on the promise. But here's the thing. So you asked me, how do you identify the stuff that's going to be of real interest, right? How do you? So we'll talk about packaging in a minute, but how do you identify that stuff? Well, let's have a look at the conversation that you had with your client. Right now, as we move through our careers and as we build experience and expertise in what we do, we typically build our own insights that we then put into our approach, right? That we engineer into our approach. And the reason that we do that is because by doing so, it enables us to get to results quicker. It means that the results we get are much better, and it means that we serve our clients in the best way possible. And so really what we're trying to do is to distill those insights, to work out so here's the big one, right? What is it that you know that your market needs to know that it doesn't know? And the way that you identify that stuff, one of the ways, and this is why the client interviews are important, is your clients will talk to you about the problems that they had. And when you understand the problems that they've got and your knowledge, the insights you have about how they can overcome those problems, then that's the stuff you need to start tapping. But the first thing that you need to tap is the problem that they're struggling with. Because do you remember I said earlier that when you come across somebody who can describe your problem better than you can and bring clarity around that problem, that's the stuff that really engages. When somebody comes across a piece of content that promises to describe and illuminate a problem and then solve it, they're going to read that content, or they're going to watch that content, or they're going to listen to it. So that's why speaking to your clients is so important, because they'll give you the kind of ballpark, the playing field that you're going to operate in, and they'll start telling you about the key topics that you need to focus in on.
Got it. Okay, so putting this into a tangible perspective that we could do. So you mentioned at the start of that, Alex, that we've got, especially me included, a very, very small span of attention. So we'll see something. So if we're talking in the B2B space, we're talking about LinkedIn at the moment on the text only posts. I believe you've only got 3 lines of heading for each post, and then you've got the option to click read more either on your mobile, on your PC, and then you can see the full extent of that post. So if we're talking about LinkedIn, then you've only got those lines. If you're talking about a Google ad, then you've only got a few lines of text. Likewise with the Facebook ad, Instagram ad. So we've got such a limited caption to grab people's attention before they click to read more, click our ad to drive to our website, our landing page, whatever the specific motivation is for that piece of content to then drive a click through.
Yes.
To get our initial result. So we've got to think about...
Let me stop you there for a second, Sam. You do not have those 3 lines. Those are the lines that show up, but you've got one line to grab people's attention. So that first line needs to smash it.
Yep. So to put this into practice, so we need to understand the key problems that our customers have explained to us. But perhaps you could share an example that you've used, maybe, Alex, in the past, of how we can actually put that into that one line. Are we just literally writing, this customer had this problem, or are we putting it into a story format, or are we putting it into something slightly different?
So story formats work really, really well. I've done a lot of training over my career, and one bit of training that I did was with Dale Carnegie. Now, it's an organization that's grown up around the content that was created by Dale, almost a century ago now, I think it was. I think he was operating in the 1920s, or, certainly in the early part of last century. He wrote the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And when I was doing that training, I learned a format for delivering a story that kind of sells an idea and gets people engaged. And I think it's a really powerful format that we can use today. So it's just one of the ways that you can grab people's attention. But the way that you do it is you bring people straight into the story with a quote, right? You might want to use something that somebody has said to you that kind of sparks interest, right? So I might write a quote from a client, and it might be something like, wow, I never thought that would work, right? Or, you know what, Alex, I tried what you told me and it just worked like gangbusters, right? So, or you might say, what was it? So recently I did a case study interview for a client, and when I told the client what their client had told me, they were like, wow, did they really say that? And so what you're doing is you're bringing people into the story, but you're bringing them smack in right at the most important point of that story, and you're kind of setting, getting them curious. What's that? What do they mean by that? What's going to happen next? So that's one way you can do it. Another way is with a question. Questions are really good, right? Because we are, when we're at school, when we're asked a question, we're programmed to answer that question, right? You ask somebody a question at the beginning of a post, what are they going to do? They're going to want to answer it, but they're going to look at what other people have said as well, right? So questions are very good, kind of quotes are really good, facts are really good. So statistics, great way to start a post. Anything that drags people straight in. It's like a good movie, right? You need a movie doesn't start at the beginning of a story. It starts at the most important point in that story, so it grabs your attention immediately.
Got it. Okay, so we're grabbing attention, we're piquing curiosity with the very start of the piece of content, the post, or whatever form of media or advertisement we're going after. How are we at implementing the trust element that we talked about at the start? How are we getting people to trust not only that we're an expert, but we actually know our stuff? So the problem we're proclaiming that we can help with, we actually can help with.
So it's a great question, and the first thing, right? That's never going to happen with one piece of content ever, no matter how good that content is. What that one piece of content could potentially do is take you a long way to trust for certain, because if it's really good, if it's a white paper. When I say white paper, I'm not talking about a very technical document. I'm talking about something that somebody might have downloaded off your website, and that can be a bit meatier. And if they get through that and they're like, this is just genius, then you've gone a long way to building that credibility and trust. But credibility and trust is a journey. And it needs to be something that you bring everything to bear on, right? So this is something that's very pertinent to your industry as well and what you do. So credibility and trust comes from what you say and do. It comes from what people say about you, and it comes from how you show up. So it might be, I was listening to a brilliant podcast the other day with one of my sales mentors, a guy called Marcus Kalki, who I know you know very well, and a guy called David Premier, who wrote a book called To Sell the Way That You Buy. And in that conversation, they talk about the importance of tone, right? So when I talk about showing up, I'm talking about the confidence that you exude, and the security and the comfort that you exude, because people can very quickly pick up if you don't feel 100% confident about what you're offering or selling, and if they pick that up, then you're going to have a hard time convincing them. But then, so it's how you show up, it's what you say, it's what other people say about you, but it's also the look and feel of every kind of touch point. So your LinkedIn profile, your website pages, your YouTube and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm sure you know more about this kind of thing than I, but the importance of a beautifully designed web page that has the right personality.
Got it. No, that all makes perfect sense. So, and I love what you said there, Alex, that credibility and trust is a journey. So that's pretty much what I was hoping you're going to say, unless you're going to give us a super ninja hack to build trust and get about 100 leads off one magical piece of content, which would be lovely. But I think I'm dreaming there. So yeah, it's a journey. And yeah, that's certainly something I've experienced from my point of view, and LinkedIn posts especially. It's quite often the case, which if you're in the B2B space and you're posting on LinkedIn and you're doing all that good stuff that you mentioned, you're piquing curiosity, you're talking about the problems that you tend to solve, you're sharing insights. So you're actually giving people small little tidbits, little nuggets of how they can kick more ass, really, get better at their job, get better at their day-to-day. And so when the time comes that they actually need help with this specific problem, this specific issue, you're the one that's top of mind, because you've built that trust over time. And as we know, in the buying journey, it takes around 7 or more touch points before someone's ready to do business with you. So whether they've seen you on LinkedIn, whether they've seen a Google ad or organic result on Google, some other kind of advertisement, or they've been on your website or your landing page, and then that final little tipping point that when they're ready to give you a call or fill out an inquiry form or do some business with you. So yeah, that's all really, really, really good stuff, man. And that makes perfect sense. Cool. So yeah, moving forward, I mean, we've talked essentially about how we can interview our ideal customers, how we can provide these insights, how we can wrap this all up into a powerful formula. Is there anything else that we need to bear in mind, or any things to wrap up, Alex, that we should consider when we're trying to put all this that we've discussed into play?
Yeah, I think there is, and I think this is a key thing, right? So it's all about repetition and consistency. Okay, so as we've said, you're never going to get the results you're looking for from one thing or doing it once, right? So it's something that people seem to be very good at creating stuff, but they can get very nervous about communicating that stuff, distributing it, sending it out. So if you're going to spend your time doing it, you've got to get it out there. That's what I would say, number one. But the thing that I think that a lot of people miss is calls to action, right? So you have to ask somebody to do something, because if you don't ask them to do it, they're not going to do it, right? So you can have lots of great content out in the world, but if you're not asking anybody to do anything, then you're kind of putting it on them to come to you, right? And some people might, and if the content's good enough, then they will, but you need to help them on that journey. And again, it is a journey, right? The whole buying process is a journey, and you have to help people on that journey. You have to signpost it as well as possible, and you have to get them moving along that journey so that they make it. And it's a joined up process, right? You have to understand where you want to get people to and where they're going to start, and then you have to make sure everything is joined up so that they actually get there, right? So that, give you an example of that. I've got a guide and a little ebook on my website. It's all about how you tell stories that sell, right? Which it basically, what it looks at is why a lot of case studies lack power, and how you can tell those stories so they have the biggest impact possible, right? Now, most people won't know that that's on my website. So what I would do on LinkedIn, and what I do is I write a lot of posts about storytelling, about case studies and that kind of thing. But at the end of every single post, I will say, I have written a guide for you all about this that goes into more detail. Click this link or link in the comments and come and download it, right? Because I know that's what I need people to do. That's the first step of their journey. Well, the first step was them having a look at my stuff on LinkedIn. The second step, coming to the website and downloading something, and then they're inviting me to build a relationship with them. And then the whole time you're thinking about, right, how do I get them further and further down the funnel to the sale? And that's going to change depending on your business and your customer, but it's the journey that's important.
Definitely love that. And I think it's something that businesses are guilty of doing too much of. And what I mean by that is making it too difficult for people to do business with them, which is something I talked about in one of our earlier podcasts with Daryl Prell. And what I mean by that is just like you said there, Alex, give the call to action. So in your case, saying that in the comments below on this LinkedIn post, there's a link to download this guide, and that's going to help them learn further. And like you say, you can add them then to your email list, over time nurture them. And the chances are over time, many of those people that sign up may well come to you when they're ready for your help to do some business with you. And likewise, if that can be applied to many assets, whether it's digital, whether it's offline, it's all about making it not only doing all these things that you say, so building trust, proving that you are an expert, proving you understand your ideal customers' problems and how you can actually attack those and make their lives, make their business better, but then actually driving the action. So actually allowing them to get in touch with you, making it as easy as possible for them to either sign up to your ebook, give you a call, fill out an inquiry form. So don't do all that hard work and then hamstring yourself because you're literally making it so difficult for someone to do business with you, whether that's your website, whether that's LinkedIn, whatever the channel is. Just make sure you don't obstruct yourself by making it so difficult for someone to find an email for you or find a number for you.
Absolutely. And I would one thing that I would add to that, Sam, because I see this a lot, and it just surprises me that people do this, right? Know what it is that you're going to put behind a form and the stuff that you're going to make freely available, right? Don't put your case studies behind a form, right? I understand why you might do that, because the case study is valuable and you think people are going to want to read it, but that's the stuff you want people to get access to easy peasy, right? Because that's the stuff you definitely want them to see. Now, if it's something of value like a guide or an infographic or whatever it is, put that behind the form, because then it's a like for like swap. It's like you're asking for their email address and they want something of value that's going to help them. Okay, case study, that's going to help you. Don't put that behind a form.
Great point. Definitely agree. I mean, it's got to be quite a hefty piece of content, hasn't it? I reckon, to ask for someone's name and email, not just a simple one page on your website or something like that. It's got to have a bit of bang for your buck, if you know what I mean.
Yes and no. So what I would say is this, okay? So as we know, people have got different attention spans, and so that's why it's so important to talk to your customers, because they'll tell you everything that you need to know to sell to them. And one of the things they'll tell you is the kind of content they like to look at, the format that it's in, and how bulky it needs to be. Because if you think about it, I work with a lot of CEOs. These people do not have a lot of time, or they certainly don't have a lot of attention. They don't suffer their time being wasted, right? So, so sometimes actually what can be really useful, and it can appear on one page, but you could give somebody an entire process on a page as a mind map, say. And now I found that's been a very powerful tool, because somebody can look at, they're not giving them any details, so you're not giving them too much, but you're kind of giving them an entire process that they can look at, and they can say, well, I understand some of that. I don't understand that. I need to find out more about that. Some people like videos, some people like detail. We know that technical people typically like long form content. They like to read technical. CEOs don't. They like videos. They like something they can listen to later. So be very aware of your audience.
That's a really good ad. Understanding actually how your ideal customer likes to consume content.
Absolutely.
So really good. Alex, really enjoyed this conversation, man. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been a good chat, and I'm sure I've certainly learned a few things. I'm sure everyone tuning in has as well. Please do let us know how we can learn from you, how we can connect with you. Tell us a bit more about your business and the best way we can get in touch.
So I would say have a look at, go to findyoursalessweetspot.com. It's a new part of my 9mm PR business, and it's very much so now. If you think PR is all about creating great content and getting it through the media and on different social channels, and certain people are ready for that. I think the kind of people we're talking about today are still very much at square one. They're looking at trying to work out what it is that they know that's of value, how it is that they can attract people. They're still trying to kind of work out what it is about their, they're mining the gold of their business. And I think so we created Find Your Sales Sweet Spot as a place for people to come through a process that will get them to a place where they're ready to do the marketing. And on that website, I've got a free guide, as I say. So it's called How to Tell Stories That Sell. It's on the homepage. If you scroll down, and you'll be able to click on the link and download the book. And basically what it does is it describes how to tell a story in a way that's going to engage people and establish you as an expert in your field. And just to give you one tip from the book, and it's probably one of the most important, it's this: your case studies, the stories that you tell, are not about you. You are not the star. It's easy to think that you should be the star because you did the work, and therefore you're the expert, and hell, it should be about you. But it isn't. It's never about you. It's always about your client or your customer, and therefore every story you've got to tell has got to be about them. And the example I always give is if you've seen Star Wars or you've seen The Karate Kid, the stars of those shows is Luke Skywalker and Daniel, right? It's not Mr. Miyagi and Yoda. But if you watch The Karate Kid and you want to learn karate, where are you going to go? You're going to go to Mr. Miyagi's school of karate, right? So always take the back seat and always make your customer the star.
Love that, Alex. Really good stuff. Thanks so much for coming on once again, man. Really appreciate it.
Cheers, Sam. Thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed it. Cheers.
Cheers. And if you enjoyed the show, be sure to follow and subscribe to the Business Growth Show on your podcast channel of choice or on YouTube. We interview business leaders each and every week to provide actionable tips to make best use of marketing, grow your business, grow your sales. And thanks once again for tuning in.